Hello and welcome to another podcast with me, Troy Francis. It is Monday, April the 6th, 2020. We are in quarantine, lockdown London. I am just recording this for you before going out for my daily run. Now it's looking actually very nice and warm and sunny out there, so I'm going to go for my daily permitted exercise in a little while before going on to a webinar with John, Modern Life Dating. And I've been doing some work this morning and I'm getting on with things. We are all in a very unusual situation, of course, globally. Most countries, it seems, anyway, most countries are on some form of lockdown at the moment and it's all very odd. But, you have to get on and do what you can. My work schedule hasn't really been massively affected by this because I work from home anyway. But, of course, the restrictions are trying for everybody. We may get further restrictions here in the UK, in London, because at the weekend some people were very naughty and they were going out to parks and sunbathing and all this kind of thing when we're being told that we have to stay indoors, except for your one exercise and going to the shops and things. So, yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But anyway, we're all in this. It is what it is, and we need to carry on. So what I wanted to do today was to talk a bit about long game, because what I've been thinking is what sort of content, what sort of material do people need at the moment? And it strikes me that a discussion of what we call long game is important right now because, let's face it, most of us are in this situation. We're not really going out. We're certainly not supposed to be going on dates or meeting new people or anything like that. And so if you are creating new contacts with girls through things like Tinder or maybe on Instagram or Bumble or Hinge or any of the other apps, then what you are likely being compelled to do, and look, I mean, there are exceptions to this, but really, if we're not meant to be going out and meeting and all that kind of thing, then what you're likely having to do, in many cases, is to play long game. That is to say, you initiate some sort of attraction, some sort of interest, and then you've got to keep the thing going for a period of time until it is possible for you guys to meet up. And this might also be the case with what you might call plates, or that is to say girls who you are casually dating or who have just started to date, or you have perhaps slept with, or you're in some sort of less formal relationship with the boyfriend and girlfriend, and perhaps you can't see her or them for a period of time. And so again, what you're going to have to do is find a way to keep things going over text and maybe voice messages or phone calls, Instagram, whatever means that you're in contact, until such time as this starts to lift and you can meet up. And there's a skill set to that. And it's not something I've actually really done any content on before, I don't think. Maybe I've written an article about it, but I certainly haven't done a podcast. So I think it's something that is good to discuss a little bit for today, because I think a lot of us are in that sort of situation. And so I wanted to just go through a few tips and ideas for long game and for keeping the interest going over what might be a fairly extended period of time before we come out of this current situation. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Before that, news, parish notices. Well, Renegade Dating Blueprint, which is my collection of 11 books about dating, game, the sexual marketplace, all of this stuff that we talk about on this show, that is still available for just $39. I'm keeping it at that price throughout the current outbreak because, it's not the right time to be putting prices up, but at some point that price will have to go up. So if you want to grab my books on all of this stuff, then do head to the link below. You can still get that. And let's face it, it's kind of a good time to be doing some reading at the moment because none of us are doing a lot else. So have a look at that if you're interested in sharpening up your game. You can also get my business course, which is called Personal Brand Mastery. That is the course. I've been talking about that over the last week. That is the course which teaches you how to create a personal brand through content online like I'm doing now, and then monetize that and basically make an income from it. And there's loads and loads of benefits to doing that. You can be location independent. You can perhaps weather the storm when there's a downturn of some kind because, look, you've got customers all over the world. You're not tied to any one geographical location. If one market goes, then there are other markets you can go into. You've got freedom, and you can make a lot of money as well. I mean, I know people who make a lot of money using a personal brand business model. And so I teach all of that in this video course that is available now for just $97. Usual price is $299. So again, grab that. I'm keeping it at that low price through April because I think it's something that is important at the moment and guys, want to learn about. So do have a look at that as well. The link is below. And finally, there is a big announcement for a special release that I'm doing just for the Easter weekend. So just over Easter weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and into Tuesday, you'll be able to get hold of a very special video release product that I'm doing. But I'm just sending it out to my subscribers and to people who support me on Patreon. So if you're not on my email list, then head over to the link below and get on my daily email list, which is free. And you'll get information about that video product. And you can also support me on Patreon, and I'll be sending out information to my Patreon subscribers on this as well. It's a really special product. It's only going to be available for 5 days over the Easter weekend. So do jump on board with my email list or my Patreon. And again, the links are below to get more details on that because I'm just doing it for my own private community. So yeah, jump on board with that. It's a great product, video product, which will show you the realities. It will show it's a silver bullet, let's say, for meeting and attracting girls in real life, and it's really great stuff. You're going to love it, but do get on to my email list or to the Patreon in order to get the information about that, because it won't go out to anybody else more publicly. So there you go. So those are the things that I've got going on. Check those out. All the links are in the description below. Okay, so long game. Let's get into it. What is it and how do you do it? Okay, so look, here's the thing, right? Under most circumstances, my advice, and the advice of most people really in this space that I respect and consider to be good at what they do, is that the process of dating, the process of meeting somebody, then moving the interaction onwards, firstly, it's your responsibility as the guy. If you're a guy listening to this, if you're a lady, hello, welcome to the show. But for guys, in general, it is your responsibility to push things on, because that's still how things work in most cases. And you should also seek to do it relatively quickly. And I'm not saying being pushy, I'm not saying being an a-hole about it, but you need to take the initiative and you need to move things forward at a reasonable pace, because if you don't, then you're in danger of losing momentum, you're in danger of having the girl think that you're not actually that interested, you're in danger of her just getting bored and, finding somebody else. So it makes a lot of sense for you to push things forward quickly. The other thing, of course, is that you don't want to get into some sort of grey area where you're spending a lot of time and emotional energy investing in somebody who actually isn't really that interested in you anyway. And guys get into that situation when they fail to move the interaction forward, when they fail to move the dating process forward from I've got her telephone number and we're texting each other to I've asked her for a date to I've asked her to come back to my place for coffee or to watch Netflix or whatever. You need to move through those stages, because then if she says no at any stage and she says, listen, I thanks very much, but I don't like you in that way, then you can say, okay, fine, and you can move on more quickly than sort of dragging it out and elongating the whole process, which is not what you should do. So under most circumstances, you need to take the initiative and you need to push things forward with whatever girl or girls are in your life at that particular time. But that advice, which I stick by and is good advice, is the only advice really, I would say, that is effective in most cases, all goes out the window when you're in a situation of a global pandemic. Because we're now in this very strange situation. Excuse me, I just need to drink some water. You should keep our hydration up, by the way, guys, particularly if, like in London, it's getting a bit hotter. Keep the old hydration going. So look, all of that goes out the window when you're in this bizarre situation where all of a sudden we're not really allowed out and we're not really allowed to meet up and etc. etc. You know the details of the lockdown in your locality. But in most places, you know, socialising is not allowed. Dating is not allowed in the way that it was. So, you know, you could go on a Zoom date with her maybe, but you can't have a proper conventional date. You can't move things forward in the way that you should normally do. So what do you do? Well, what you do is you have to play long game. That is to say, you have to get into a holding pattern with her. And what that basically means is you are probably in contact with her via some means, you know, some app or messenger service or whatever. So maybe you're chatting with her on WhatsApp, maybe it's on Facebook Messenger, maybe it's on Instagram in the DMs, you know, maybe it's on email. I mean, God knows, God knows how antiquated we're getting here. But yeah, you know, you will have some means or a couple of ways that you're in contact with her. And what you have to do is find a way to keep the interest going, but also not to sort of move. I mean, in this case, you can't move too quickly because we don't know, in most cases, when the restrictions are going to be lifted. So you don't want to push things to the boil and then it sort of fizzles out. You need to keep a sort of medium sort of intensity of flirtiness going electronically through the airwaves, so that when we're all finally allowed out and, you know, the restrictions are lifted and everyone goes out into the street and gets naked and starts making love out in the highways, which I predict happening, or maybe not that dramatic, but you know what I mean. When everyone's suddenly allowed out and it all the freedom starts to come back, then you want things to be primed and ready with her so that you guys can meet up and let nature take its course. Now, you also might sometimes have to do this under normal circumstances as well. And I was talking to a client the other day and I was telling a story of one example of where this happened to me. So I met I met a girl when I was in Ibiza some years ago, and we got on well. I got her phone number. We met in a club. We were chatting. I got the phone number. She was with a friend, and the friend, as often happens with these things, was being very uncooperative and didn't want us to meet up and was sort of blocking things and didn't want the friend to go off with me. And, you know, it's like, oh my God, we're only here for 3 days and we've got to go and see this and X, Y, and Z. And, you know, there's just no time for you guys to meet up. She did everything in her power to block off the chance for us to spend time together alone. This kind of thing happens. So, but anyway, you know, I had this girl's contact details and we stayed in touch. And we stayed in touch on, I think it was Facebook, you know. And she's American, she lived in the States. So she was in New York and I was in London. And I didn't have any reason to travel to New York at that time. And so we just stayed in contact. We stayed in contact on Facebook Messenger. And we stayed in contact for over a year. Until finally, this girl was sent by her job to come over to London for some business. And we were able to meet up. And when we met up, the first time we met up, nature took its course. And I ended up going back to her hotel and etc., etc. So what you've got there is a strange sort of situation where you're in contact with somebody for a really, really long period of time and nothing happens and you're not going to meet up, but you're keeping the thing going. You're keeping it sort of on the boil. Not really on the boil, you're kind of keeping it simmering, I suppose, for all of that time, so that when finally an opportunity does arise, you're able to very quickly take things to where they need to be. Now, as I say, there is some skill to this because, well, you know, you've got to be able to keep it going. You've got to be able to find things to talk about without being boring. But at the same time, you know, you can't be all over her every day, every minute of the day. You can't be ringing her every hour or anything like that because, you know, you haven't really got a relationship. You're just two people who met in a club. And in many ways, when you think about it, how strange is that you would stay in contact with somebody like that you just randomly met once. But if you can do it effectively, it pays off because when the opportunity does arise for you guys to meet up, then very quickly it moves forward. So, you know, it's worth doing. Now, again, I was talking about this, I think it was on one of John's webinars recently, John Modern Life Dating's webinars, and I got some pushback for this because guys will say, well, yeah, but I don't want to do that because I'm only interested in being in contact with a girl if things are going to turn around quickly. And if they're not going to turn around quickly, you know, I'm just going to move on to the next one. I'm just going to next her because, you know, I don't like to play games and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. That is the right attitude to have. However, that's the right attitude to have in most cases. However, there are cases where, for genuine reasons, you guys aren't going to be able to meet up. You know, it's not like this girl in New York was playing games with me or friend-zoning me or something. You know, she just lived thousands of miles away and we weren't going to have the chance to meet up. That was all it was. And the other thing to say is that, no, of course, you shouldn't be expending lots and lots of time on this. You shouldn't be this shouldn't be your only option. You shouldn't be sitting there dreaming about this girl, you know, this one girl who's so amazing and she lives in New York and, you know, you're just going to keep texting her on the off chance that you're going to meet in a year's time. And that was not what I did at all. This was just somebody who's in the background. I was pinging her from time to time. That word pinging, we'll come on to that in a minute, it's very important. Pinging her messages from time to time. And then, you know, finally when the opportunity arose, it was game on. So that's what you need to do. You need to ping. And what pinging is sending brief messages through from time to time, not every day, not every 2 hours, not on a schedule, but just occasionally, sending over a ping and having a little chat, having a little, you know, a little joke with her or a little flirt or whatever, and then moving on with your day, doing other things, talking to other people, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe a couple of days later, a week later, you send another ping. And you're just keeping it going in the background. You're not spending hours and hours strategizing this. You're not doing this to the exclusion of dating other people or talking to other people or having a life. You're not spending like hours and hours strategizing. You're just doing it in the background. But do it and do it for long enough and you will keep that lead warm. You'll keep it simmering so that then when things change, you're able to meet up and take things forward. So the key things here really, I think, are the messages need to firstly be infrequent. Because as I say, it is very, very difficult. So say we're in this lockdown situation and this goes on for until, I don't know. I mean, they're saying now potentially the beginning of June in many countries, but it could be the beginning of July. So what are we on now? Sort of April, May, June. So say it's June, April, May. You're talking at least 2 months from now that this lockdown could continue. But it might be 3 months because depending on where you are and what happens, the restrictions could go on to the beginning of July. So say it's 3 months. That's a long time to be having a conversation with somebody, particularly if it's somebody that you don't really know very well. You know, it's different to Skyping your family every week, but you know, somebody that you don't particularly know very well. You've got to keep up a modicum of mystery. You've got to keep up a modicum of her not quite being able to figure you out, because in a flirtatious context, that is the currency. You know, so what you don't want to be doing is on Facebook or on WhatsApp or whatever, sending her big long messages explaining your life story or going into the details of what your troubled childhood was like or whatever, because that's all going to kill it, right? I mean, you know, the same rules apply. You still need to be a bit mysterious. You still need to be a little bit removed. She still shouldn't be able to properly work you out. So what you've got to avoid, and this is tricky at the moment, because at the moment you've got a lot of people sitting around, girls included, especially girls, sitting around getting a bit bored. And so, you know, if you're not careful, you could turn into her, you know, pen pal, shoulder to cry on, gay best friend type thing, if you're not careful. Because, you know, if she's a bit bored, a bit lonely, whatever, then if you start telling her your heartwarming life story and you start getting into, you know, the weeds about you and your family and why your mother never really understood you and all this kind of thing, then, you know, she might respond well to that and she might start sharing things about her and blah, blah, blah. But what you're losing, if you go down that route, is any sense of erotic charge. It's just become friend-zoney, okay? So that's what you need to avoid. So, and here as well, recognise here, what I'm specifically talking about here are girls that maybe you've only just met through the dating apps or through social media like Instagram, or maybe say it was somebody that you met in a nightclub or a bar or a coffee shop just before the lockdown happened, and you haven't really spent a lot of time together, but you want to keep her going, you want to keep her on the hook, sort of thing. So those are the kinds of situations I'm talking about. You know, you need to keep it fun, you need to keep it flirty, you need to keep it brief, and you need to be infrequent. So infrequent messaging, as I say, very important. Don't be sending a message every day. I mean, you can do if you get into a bit of a chat and it's fun and it's flirty and it's a bit sexy, that's fine. But then after that, you want to lay off a little bit. Okay, what you don't want to do is put some onerous expectation on her that this is going to be a big conversation that's going to continue for the next 3 months, because that's going to put her off. It's going to feel like a chore. It's not going to be fun for her. It's not going to be sexy for her. It's just going to be like, oh God, I've got to reply to this guy again. So you've got to keep that element of excitement in there as well. And you do that by being infrequent. So she's never quite sure when the next text is going to be. So you guys might message, you know, a couple of times a day for a few days. And then suddenly you go silent for a bit. Suddenly you disappear for a little bit, and she doesn't know what's happened or if you're going to, you know, when you're going to message next and blah, blah, blah. And then when you message again, don't feel compelled to go, right, okay, let's pick up where we left off. So what were you saying about your great Uncle Philip or something like that, you know? No, instead, you come back in with a ping that's almost as if you hadn't been talking before. You know, it's almost like you're starting afresh. And one thing you can do, which is really useful with this, particularly on Instagram, a really good way on Instagram of doing this is to comment on their stories or on their pictures, because, you know, they're gonna post things, and you know, you can make little comments about their story, make little cheeky jokes, little references, little responses to things that they post, and just keep it very light and fun and flirty as well. And that's the thing. You want to be trying to make this a bit flirtatious. And the way you can do that, you know, is by, if she posts something where could potentially be a little double entendre, a little double meaning, call out that double meaning. You know, if she says, oh, I was just out for 3 hours and I got really wet, well, you know, you can imagine what you might say then. Just kind of, obviously don't fall into perviness, but you know what I'm saying. Or if she says, oh, you know, I just went for a run, I love a bit of strenuous physical activity, ha 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 ha. You know the kind of thing that you can come back with on that. Call out the double entendres, make it a little bit sexy, make it a little bit flirty. Don't be boring. Don't go into big logical conversations about, you know, as I say, your degree in engineering or your career in, I don't know, optical technology or whatever it is. Keep it away from all of that stuff. And don't be too rhythmical in terms of your interactions. Learn to disappear, learn to go quiet, because you need to maintain a little bit of mystery. You need to maintain a little bit of inscrutability. You need to be difficult to work out, difficult to predict, okay? Even over social media, even over these messages, these texts. You can, as well, escalate, okay? And what that means in the modern context with the youngsters of today is getting, you know, talking about sex full on, sending new pictures, getting her to send new pictures, all that kind of stuff. You can do all of that for sure, but the only caution I would say in this period is that there can be a danger in bringing things to the boil too early, because, as I say, look, this could be 2 months, this could be 3 months before you can realistically meet up. So that being the case, if you, in the next day, are chatting with a girl and you are getting it really horny and you're talking about sex and you're really bringing it to the boil, and then there's no release for that for another 2 months, then your timing is a little bit out, because she might almost think, well, it might become anticlimactic in a sense, because it might be like she gets all sort of het up. She really wants something to happen, but she's aware that nothing can happen. And in the end, she might just almost consign it to, she might just say, well, it's never going to happen. Maybe our time was just wrong. Put it to one side, and she forgets about you. What you want to do, ideally, is to create that sort of upward build to the climax, so that just before lockdowns are released globally, depending on where you are, where she is, and you guys probably are about to be able to meet up, you want it at that point to be turning the temperature up, but not necessarily now. It's a bit like, you get the same kind of thing with night game, right? So say you're out on a night out and you are, you're going around, you're talking to different people, you're talking to different girls, and you are with one girl and you kind of escalate things really hard, but it's too early in the evening and she can't go because she's with all her friends and it's only 9 o'clock and the place is open for another 5 hours and etc, etc, etc. You can almost peak too early, if you like, and then she kind of has to say, well, listen, I like you, but this is all a little bit early. I'm not going to be able to leave here for another 5 hours. And then it kind of loses momentum. And then, you go for a bit and then you come back and she's talking to someone else and then the whole thing's diffused and you've lost it. What you want to do is time it carefully so that you are upping the excitement level, upping the energy just before you guys actually can come together in more ways than one. So in this particular situation with the global restrictions we're seeing, you just need to sort of be mindful of that and time what you're saying to these girls carefully in response to what's happening with the restrictions. If we go forward a month or a couple of months and it's looking like things might start to be easing off, then you can turn the dial up on the flirtation, because you'll be aware that, in a few weeks or a week or so, maybe realistically you could actually meet up and you could take things forward. But if that's not looking like happening, then I would counsel that you maybe go a little bit slowly on the full sex stuff, because keeping up the intensity of really full-on sexual flirtation now until the beginning of July is going to be tough for anybody, I would say. It's just, you can't maintain that heat of excitement for that long without there being an outlet for it. So just be cautious of that. However, that's not to say that, if you're into a nice rhythm of, sending nudes and things like that, and, then you can keep that bubbling under. But just be a little bit cautious is what I'm saying, that you don't sort of up the ante too soon, too hard, and then there's no outlet for it, and then it loses momentum. What you can do as well is play on frustration. So, you want to be messaging and really playing up how frustrating this current situation is. Oh, isn't it? We're all cooped up. Won't it be amazing when we can just meet up? And then you want to be able to go into future projections. So projecting what the two of you are going to do when you meet up. Now, again, you might not want to be too sexual with this because it might be a little bit early for that, but you might want to be saying things like, oh, I just can't wait. We can go to the beach. I know this amazing beach club. Just imagine feeling the heat on your skin, just being able to wear a bikini again in public and feeling the cool water as we dive into the pool and hearing the music and the taste of those drinks as we drink those exotic cocktails and et cetera, and building up that picture, a very sensual picture of what you two are going to be able to do together when this lockdown is over. Because what you want her to do is to be imagining the two of you breaking free together and being able to have this wonderful future interaction. So you want to be implanting that, but at the same time, you then want to be pulling away, pulling off, not like that. You want to be, pulling back for a period of time, so you're not all over her the whole time. Because even digitally, if she feels like she is your only option, you are just all over her every day. It's like, right, what was I saying about that swimming pool again? Right, imagine the cocktails again. Imagine the beach. It's going to wear thin if this goes on for a couple of months or so. So again, just be sensible about this. And the best way, as with anything, is to have a bit of abundance. That is to say, ideally she isn't the only one that you're talking to. Ideally there are several. And perhaps you are, spending time on the dating apps. Perhaps you're spending time on your social media, Instagram, creating new contacts, and then you're starting the process with them as well. Because then, when there's several of them, and you're not just reliant on the one, then you're doing the same sort of process with each of them. And so you're not going to be bombarding one girl with all of this stuff, and she's going to get fed up with it and pull back, And actually, what I said about being infrequent, that is to say, not, messaging the one girl every single day or every couple of hours or whatever, but make it a bit infrequent and a bit more exciting for that reason, is going to play better for you if you've got more prospects on the go, if you've got more abundance, because your attention is naturally going to be diverted by these other girls that you're chatting to. So, and now is an ideal time to be finding what you might call leads, that is to say, to be sourcing prospects for dating through the dating apps, through Instagram, etc. Now, again, regardless of if you're going to be able to meet up with her next week or not, well, okay, maybe not, but you can start the process with her, find new ones, start the process with them. And by the end of this period, you could have loads that you're pinging. You're sending these little pings to all of these different girls. Some of them are probably going to fall off. Well, that's okay, that happens. But others are going to be primed and ready. So that when finally, Donald Trump or Boris Johnson or whoever it is blows the final whistle and says, right, everybody go out and party, and we go into some big, hedonistic sex fest, which hopefully will happen, then you'll be ready for that, and you'll have these contacts that you've been working on over this period ready to go. So that's what you need to be doing. And pings, by the way, it doesn't need to just be written messages. Pictures are really, really good. So you can send little memes. There are loads of great memes going around at the moment, obviously about the situation, about what's happening. You don't want to send anything too dark. You don't want to send anything too depressing. You're trying to keep the mood good and positive. But there's lots of little jokes, little memes you can send, pictures of cute animals. You can do voice pings. Voice pings are really, really good. This was a piece of advice from my friend Tom Torero, who's really into leaving, like a WhatsApp voice message for her. So rather than just writing the text, you can do that on Instagram as well. Little videos, just lots of different things. Just try and mix it up a bit, vary it. Not just you saying, "Oh, so did you have a nice day today? How was work? How was working from home? Ha ha ha." Mix it up. Use different media. Just use all the possibilities of the internet. Call. You can do calls if you want. You can do video calls, as long as you're confident about it, being able to keep the conversation going. Use all of these different things. Because look, the advantage that you have in this situation is that she is pretty bored, and she is kind of frustrated, and she's sitting at home and maybe a bit lonely and whatever. So absolutely play on that. Absolutely take advantage of that. But, give her some value. Make it fun for her. Make it exciting for her. Make it a bit sexy for her. Don't make it boring and just like, oh God, this guy is just, he's trying to leech all of the value out of me. You need to be giving her value by being not a dancing monkey. That's not what I'm saying. But, just by giving her a bit of entertainment in terms of making it sort of like, wow, this guy's really cool. There's something interesting about him. I can't wait to meet up with him when this thing is over. So look, I hope that was helpful. I hope that made some sense. I think this is a really important topic, and I'd be really interested to know how it's going for you listening to this. Perhaps you're, in some sort of long game type situations yourself. Are you applying what I'm saying? Are you doing it differently? Have you got anything to add to this? I'd be really keen to know what you have to say on this. So do leave a comment below. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, because I'm putting loads of content on YouTube at the moment, and the support really, really helps me to grow the audience, to speak to more people, and to keep this content coming. So I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button. As I say, get on my daily email list for information on that special video release that's coming out over the Easter weekend for my subscribers only. So do get onto that. Grab Renegade Dating Blueprints, link below. Support me on Patreon. You'll get 2 free videos a week, plus access to me, plus information on this new video release that's coming up, or video course that's coming up over the weekend, over the Easter weekend. And yeah, that's it really. But look, keep your spirits up. Realise that this is not going to go on forever. There is some light, I think, at the end of some tunnels, if you look at what's happening globally. So, keep it fun, keep it positive, keep it witty, keep it irreverent. Recognise that this too shall pass, and we will speak again very soon. Bye-bye.